Hey, what is up guys? Today I'm going to show you how to play mid lane Coddle featuring Sumail. We're going to be watching his mid Coddle. If you don't know, this is not a meme. This is actually one of the most popular mid lane heroes of the current patch, at least in high MMR. And yeah, this hero is very, very powerful. It is one of the fastest farming mids in the game. In fact, I think you might be able to argue that Coddle is actually the fastest farming mid in all of Dota. You will see his net worth absolutely skyrocket. The timings this hero can hit is nuts, and we're going to get into my personal favorite Coddle build that actually Sumail goes. Well, I have two. He doesn't go both of the builds. We're going to watch him go one of my favorite builds. Yeah, we'll get into that. Also, I want to tell you guys that if you've been struggling with solo queue and you're looking to get to the next rank, I'm going to be able to help you. Like, literally, with the GameLeap website, I'm going to give you guys guides that are going to make it unbelievably clear on what you need to do. So if you've been stuck in the solo queue grind, you don't know what to do, and you want to become absolutely broken, but like actually you want to become much better at Dota, and you want to take it more seriously, the GameLeap website is going to help you do that. So click the link down below, I'm going to help you get to the next rank, and I'll see you there. Alright, so the first thing to note about mid Coddle is that this hero, the reason why it's a good mid is number one, it farms a lot, and number two, it's kind of just one of those heroes that can get very active around the map. Coddle doesn't really have cooldowns. The only cooldown it has is its ultimate, which is a 40-second duration and a 65-second cooldown, which is only a 25-second downtime. That's obviously not that much for such an impactful spell. And so yeah, basically this hero can just be very active on the map, and it farms items. That's all you really need to know. Its kit isn't necessarily that devastating in team fights, but it just kind of gets items quickly, and it uses those items to snowball its game, as well as spamming Illuminate. But all right, let's get into it. So in the mid lane, the main idea of this hero is not necessarily winning the lane, it's just getting creeps, securing as many creeps as possible. So the main thing that you usually do is if your block goes well, and it doesn't get completely screwed over like this, what you would do is you would actually auto-attack the range creep 3 times and then blast. That is what's needed at level 1 to kill off the range creep. And the reason why this is important is if you auto-attack the range creep right away at the beginning of the lane, your first blast will not only kill the range creep, but also the first melee creep. So you secure 2 CS with your first blast, and that's convenient. Obviously here, because of the bad block, and because of the fact that the position 5 Pugna put down a nether ward, which was hilarious. I think it was Juve. I don't know what he's doing. It's crazy stuff. But yeah, so that happened. So he obviously doesn't blast for that reason. So instead he just lets the storm push in the wave. But yeah, that is the gist of Coddle. Basically you want to prep the range creep so that you can blast not only the range creep, but also a melee creep as well. He honestly goes for a blast here that was actually kind of crappy. It didn't really secure any creeps, and it even put his range creep in deny range. And fortunately, it didn't get denied there, and Sumail, being the beast that he is, was able to secure a couple of, actually 3 denies, which was pretty nuts. But yeah, let's get into the next part. So the next thing you do is anytime you don't have a clear wave to farm, or the wave dies early on, you farm something else. So here, the wave has died immediately. Why? Because it went under tower. So what is Sumail going to do? He's going to blast the small camp. It's not going to kill the small camp. That's not even the goal here. The goal is just to chip down the camp. And the reality is, because of how chakra magic works, reducing the cooldown of your other abilities, you'll have Illuminate up for the next wave anyway. And you'll see he's now going to look to hit the range creep a couple times and then blast said range creep. And also one thing to note is at level 2, when you have your level 2 blast, you'll actually one-shot the range creep off a full channeled blast. Sometimes it's good to prep the range creep anyway and hit it once, because then you don't have to full channel. Sometimes some mid laners can actually cancel the channel or hit you while you're channeling. Of course it depends, but usually you're just going to full blast to level 2. That's going to kill the range creep. Then you're going to want to generally draw creep aggro on the melee creep so that they can't be easily denied. And then you rinse repeat, just blasting the camps over and over again. And yeah, that's kind of the gist of mid Coddle. On top of that, he actually does this kind of cool play where he kills the small camp into a stack on the large camp. So of course you're going to lose a lane creep for this, but it's generally worth it. I think he hits it early, but yeah, that's actually what you can do as well for efficiency. And so essentially in between each and every wave, you either want to stack something or kill a small camp. We'll see here, once he gets towards level 5, he's going to amp this up a bit more. Level 5 seems to be sort of the major timing here for him to head into the deeper jungle, and we'll see that in a moment. So he hits level 5, and he goes at what I would consider a weird time. It's a weird time to me because the creep wave is just meeting soon, so usually I would expect him to connect. I thought he was going to stack here, but he actually just straight up blasts. And yeah, so he just blasts through 2 camps. Doesn't really even seem like he bothers trying to stack them. He just tries to kill 2 camps. Now, Obviously, you don't want to miss too many lane creeps, so that was probably not the best time for him to do that. And the thing is, like, don't be afraid to just leave the creeps low. I think that's a big thing here. Don't be afraid to just leave the large creep at like half HP and a medium creep at like 3/4 or a third HP to get back to the lane. The priority is always shove the lane and then kill the neutral camps because, you know, one goes away and one doesn't. So, yeah, rinse, repeat, level 5, clear the wave. Then after that, he does some shenanigans here where he bullies the Storm. It's basically because he hits level 6 before Storm does, so he decides to bully him here. He even pings the Storm. He's like, maybe we can kill him. But yeah, I mean, this is something you could do too, right? Because when you hit level 6, what the advantage is that you now have Blinding Light, which does 100 damage, which is actually quite a lot. And you can blast them back into your Illuminate, which is the bigger part here, right? Because usually Illuminate is easily dodged at this point of the game if it's channeled, like, at all. And so you can use the Blinding Light to bully them out. And that's what he does. He actually sends the Storm back to base. He was a little bit afraid of dying to him, so he jungles here until he gets his Salve. He was definitely afraid of Storm healing up and solo killing him as the level 6 timing was coming. But then from there on out, it's a rinse repeat. Basically, all you're going to do is clear the wave and then clear the nearby camps, rinse repeating this over and over and over again. That is literally all you do. If there's no camps to the south side of you, you go north. If there's no camps to the north, you go south. And you just rinse repeat. And yeah, do not rotate at all. This is the last thing I'll say before we head towards the mid game and talk about the item decisions. Just don't rotate. The reality is that unless you go the bots build that some coddles do, rotating, it's just not worth it because you're giving up on so much CS. Right? As we'll see here, his net worth is the highest in the game, and this isn't even like as many CS as you could have. I'm pretty sure there's coddles who can get like 100 at 10 if they have like optimal stacking or their team stacks for them. Then they can even get 100. And he also died, right? Which set back his CS quite a bit. If he hadn't have died and his team stacked for him, he would probably have about 100 right now, which is why this hero can get massive. Of course, as we said, he died, so he's not like way ahead here, but that is the gist. So in terms of skill build, you're gonna max out your abilities before taking any points in the Solar Bind usually. Sometimes you can take 1 point before the last point of Chakra Magic. And the only reason for that is like if you think you're gonna go for a kill when you're level 9, then sometimes you want to skill it earlier just so you have the ability, but you don't always have to do that. The more common build is just going 404, having maxed out Chakra and maxed out Illuminate. Now we're going to see his first major gank, or at least major successful gank of the game here. Seemingly at level 10, this is when he does it. He skips his level 10 talent, skills the Solar Bind, and now he feels comfortable making a gank, even though he's close to Orchid. I thought he was going to wait for Orchid. He just goes before Orchid, leads in with the Solar Bind, throws down the blast. Usually you're going to push them back into the blast. Unfortunately, just barely misses there. Otherwise, the CK would be already dead. Missed the second one as well. A couple misses on the blast, but eventually ends up getting the kill with the third one and takes out the CK. So if anyone's diving towers, this is the name of the game for Coddle, because if you defend towers like that or you respond to like people who are close to your towers, it's very hard for the enemy to counter gank you. And that's the biggest weakness of Coddle as a mid. You have very limited HP and no massive way to defend yourself. And as a result, if you have to overextend for kills, you'll likely die in return. So try to go for those easier kills and stay on your portion of the map. You shouldn't really be invading the enemy jungle. You shouldn't be like pushing up to their tier 1s and hitting a tier 1. You should never be doing these type of things. You should only be really responding to dives. As once again, we actually see that immediately here. The enemy team dives his PL top, he TPs in with his Orchid, and that is the build he's going to be going. So why Orchid? It's pretty simple to understand. It does make you right click quite a bit faster, which is nice because when you're killing a wave, sometimes you have to hit all the melee creeps. It helps you kill large creeps a little bit faster, which is pretty nice. But the biggest part is, of course, the active. The main reason why he buys it here is definitely for the Storm. And I love this decision. The reason why is Storm is a hero that is a hard counter to Coddle, right? Storm is a hero that naturally gets on top of Coddle and destroys him. And so you kind of have two options, I would say. You can either go an early Ghost Scepter to sort of try to deal with it, or you can go Orchid, which also allows you to go aggressive. So the Orchid here is not only an offensive option like it's typically used, it's also a defensive option against the Storm. The Storm will not be able to kill him from full with the silence coming out. And so I really like this option here. It's also just kind of good at killing people. And frankly, I love the fact that he goes back for the Vessel. I feel like a lot of players think that you either rush Vessel or you don't buy it at all. And I think this is totally incorrect. This item just scales well because it's percentage-based damage. And immediately we're going to see the Orchid pay off. He's going to TP and actually set up on a full HP Chaos Knight. And you'd imagine that he just doesn't really have the damage for this, but with the Orchid coming out, there's no defensive stun that can come out. The blast is going to be amped up, right? Because when the Orchid ends, it's going to be amped up a little bit. So the CK takes almost about a half of his health just from the first blast and Orchid. And this is a 1600 HP hero? my bad, 2,000 HP hero with Armlet active, 2,200. You know, and the blast did a really significant chunk. So of course, these aren't the main heroes you're typically gonna kill. Caudle's very good at basically full to nothing any support. That's like the main heroes you're gonna be going for, like low HP storms. So yeah, and often you do need a +1 in the early game to kill people, which is something to keep in mind. However, as long as you have a +1, you can just kill people off cooldown because you'll never run out of resources. So in this game, he decides to go back for bots, which I think is reasonable. It's just like a good item on this hero. It lets you kind of kite in and out of fights, push in waves, and that's what Caudle does, right? Caudle just shoves in waves and then kites around. So it's kind of the perfect item for the hero. And, you know, it also just allows him to farm more. Because the problem is, if you try to split push with no TP on this hero, you're most likely going to get ganked. So I do like it in this match. Now, this is where things start to get weird as he starts to push out side lanes. Basically, when you have bots, you want to take the farm away from your teammates because there's like a very low chance they'll actually die. When you have your ultimate active, if you max level blast and then blinding light a creep wave, it will die. Or if you have a Kaya, it will die just to the illuminate. But generally what you'll see people do is blast blinding light and clear the wave that way. And so of course what you want to do is just enable your teammates to take the safe farm while you take the dangerous farm. When you have the spirit form active, it gives you a cast range bonus as well and a movement speed bonus. So basically like your hero is just uncatchable for the most part. Like obviously it can die, but if you're relatively careful, you will not die. So don't take your PL's farm. Don't take your Night Stalker's farm. Give them the mid lane, give them the safe mid lane, give them the jungle. Try to push out the harder farm. Only take the safe farm if you're like way behind, which you really should not be on this hero just because of how it works. And honestly, the teamfight execution for this hero is generally pretty simple. Obviously, there's some like chakra magic outplays you could do, but the reality is 9 times out of 10, you're just gonna chakra yourself. But yeah, you kind of just throw up an Illuminate. Keep in mind that when you have your ulti active, Illuminate actually heals as well, which is why this hero is pretty insane. It has so much utility. But the Illuminate heals, so often you want to stand in front of it if you're missing HP. You can also use it on your teammates to heal them up, try to save them, as I think he actually sort of tries to do with the Night Stalker there. Maybe could have released it a little bit early to even buy some time for the Night Stalker, but you just kite out. Anytime your Illuminate and Solar Bind is down, which usually should be the first couple things you cast, you kind of just kite out, right? So you throw out your Orchid, you throw out your Vessel, you throw out your Blast, you kind of just chuck everything at the same time. You should be able to cast everything in 1 to 2 seconds, and then you chill, right? The mistake most players will make is they're gonna like auto attack, right? They're like, I have an Orchid, I need to auto attack, and they're just gonna throw their game, right? Do not do this. In fact, what you'll really see that's really awesome about Caudle, when you have this Orchid Vessel timing, the damage you do is nutty. It is nutty. It's nuts. It really is nuts because as we'll see here, as he's going to go on to the CK, the Orchid does 30% of the damage during the active, right? So like kind of, it does the tick damage at the end. I'm sure most of you guys know how it works. But the Vessel does percentage-based damage, which is good earlier on, right? Vessel does a lot of damage to full HP heroes and limited damage to low HP heroes. So it works perfectly with Orchid because you Orchid Vessel and just like on any hero, this is not even Caudle specific, which is why I like this combo of items. On any hero that cannot dispel it, which is kind of why this is not broken because it's dispellable. But when they can't dispel it, you'll see here, the Solar Bind amps the magical damage by 34%, right? And then Vessel comes out, Orchid comes out, it's just ticking. There's been no blast yet. And this might not seem that significant, but the thing is there's still half duration on Orchid. The Vessel's still ticking for the majority of it. Now he gets blasted, which also the Orchid amps. And when the Orchid ticks out, look at his HP. This guy has 3,000 health. And this is why this build is so nice, especially against these tankier team comps. It just makes these heroes that usually are untouchable be completely squishy, right? Your Marses, your Beastmasters, your Chaos Knights. There's so many examples. Your Night Stalkers, they just get melted by this build. So at this point in the game, he actually goes what is literally my favorite item on this hero that I think is so underrated, even though a lot of people buy it, so it's not completely underrated, but it's E-Blade. And the build that I honestly despise is the Dagon 5 Rush. I feel like it's so garbage, I'm not gonna lie. I just can't get behind that build at all. I think it's so trash compared to this Orchid Vessel E-Blade build. Like Orchid Vessel is like the same cost as like, it's like much cheaper than Dagon 5, right? It's like much cheaper. So Orchid is 3,400, Vessel is 2,800, right? So that puts you up to about like 6.3K, right? Something like that. And then Dagon 5 is like 7 point something. Yeah, it's like way more expensive. And you might be like, oh, it's so much damage. It's like 800 damage, which is, it's amped, of course, right? It's amped, but you don't, Chakra Magic does not nerf, like buff the cooldown of items. So you might be thinking, oh, when you Chakra, it's like good with Dagon because you can like Dagon and then Dagon again quickly, but that it doesn't buff items, right? So it doesn't really work like that. I'm just a hater of the Dagon 5 build. I think it's honestly trash in like the majority of games. It also leaves you very vulnerable to just dying, where Orchid gives you protection, Ghost Scepter gives you protection. Like, yeah, I think this build is just so much better. And the thing about E-Blade is it lets you one-shot waves with your Illuminate only, which is nice, just for, you know, being able to save Blinding Light, and sometimes you don't have Blinding Light because of the cooldown on your ulti. So it lets you one-shot waves, which also lets you stay safe because Blinding Light makes you have to walk up to waves. And then the E-Blade is great as well because it amps the damage of the Orchid Burst, it amps the Vessel damage, it amps your Q damage, it keeps them in the queue because it slows them. I just personally think this item is fantastic. It's also a great defensive option against a lot of the physical damage heroes that inevitably will try to jump Coddle in a team fight. In terms of talents, at level 10, he took 20 movement speed, which I don't think he even took it to like level 14. So yeah, usually skip that at level 15, you take the Chakra Magic cooldown. 2 Solar Bind charges is honestly a great 15 talent. I think it's kind of underrated. The problem is Chakra Magic cooldown is just too good, so in general, you have to take it. And the reason why is it just buffs up all your spells. It just drops the cooldown on Blinding Light, Solar Bind, and your Q. It just lets you be so active with your abilities in team fights and just pop off. And you can see in this team fight here, as we'll watch him go off, right? Storm zips in, the Monkey King goes in, and the Monkey King's just destroyed, right? Because he gets Orchid Vesseled, and as I'm saying, like, just a small round of spells just removes heroes' HP. It just removes it because it's all this like percentage damage, right? And so these tankier heroes, when their BKBs and dispels are down, which is all, like, you just need to kite, okay? When people BKB, don't run up and hit them. Don't try to do it. Just chill. If you have any patience, this hero is like one of the highest damage dealers in the game when the you know, BKBs and Lotuses are already used, which often there won't even be BKBs and Lotuses because you're playing in a public match of Dota 2. Alright, nonetheless, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, and you're inspired to play this hero, I recommend giving it a shot. It's honestly so much fun. Like, not only is this hero good, it's a freaking blast to play. Get it? Coddle Blast? Alright, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one, and I'm out. Peace!
And that's all, but remember, before you leave, come on, before you tune out, subscribe to the GameLeap website where we are going to help you get to the next rank. If you're stuck, click the link down below, and I'm out. Peace!